Bigfoot sightings are becoming increasingly common, with the mystery surrounding the cryptid continuing to inspire our imaginations while also demonstrating our lack of understanding and knowledge about the world we live in. While many sightings are debunked as hoaxes, there are still credible witnesses that have and continue to come forward with new reports and evidence. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 interesting Bigfoot stories. Theodore Roosevelt and Bigfoot. Following the assassination of President William McKinley in 1901, Theodore Roosevelt became the 26th President of the United States. Despite his success in the White House, which earned him a second term, Theodore Roosevelt was also an experienced hunter and frontiersman who had nurtured a love for the outdoors from a young age. He spent years of his life tracking a variety of wildlife through the forests and mountainous regions of the American frontier to the more unique species of wildlife that populate the plains of Africa. Roosevelt captured his memoirs in a series of books, but in his 1893 work entitled The Wilderness Hunter, he tells the story of a fellow frontiersman who claimed to have had an encounter with a creature that resembles the more recent sightings of Bigfoot. The story was told to Roosevelt by an old hunter named Bauman. Bauman recalled the story as an event of his younger years, in which he and his friend headed out into the Montana Territory to trap beavers in a river valley. Bauman and his friend had travelled up the same mountain pass in which, a year prior, the half-eaten remains of a trapper had been discovered by some mining prospectors. These prospectors had come across the trapper's camp the previous night, and the circumstances surrounding his death were mysterious. They were unable to determine which creature had been responsible for the trapper's demise. Upon returning to their camp, Bauman and his companion realized that a bear had visited while they were gone and had rummaged through their belongings and destroyed their shelter, which at first did not seem strange. However, as Bauman's companion grew curious, he began to closely analyze the prints. Bauman's partner came back to the campfire, stared out into the darkness for a few moments, and made the startling claim that whatever had made the prints had been walking on 2 legs. After discussing the possibilities of what could have made the prints, both men headed off to bed. At around midnight, Bauman was awoken by a noise around the camp. He sat up, caught the strong scent of a wild beast, and saw the large body standing by the opening of the shelter. He grabbed his rifle and fired at the beast, before it ran off into the darkness of the thick forest trees. Bigfoot encounter at Ape Canyon. Ape Canyon is located to the northeast of Mount St. Helens in Washington state. The canyon acquired its name as a result of one of the most famous Bigfoot attacks in history. The attack happened on a summer's night in 1924 when a group of 5 miners who were staying in a cabin came under attack by a group of ape men that were positioned on the ridges above. All 5 of the miners survived the attack and would go on to tell the same story of what had happened that night to the local news outlets. The miners claimed that before the attack started, they were all asleep in the cabin that they had built by hand. As they slept, a flurry of large rocks began to rain down on the camp from all sides. The miners took up arms and began to fire back at the beasts. At first, this helped suppress the attacks, only to begin again a few moments later. One of the miners recalled the moment when one of the beasts came close to the cabin and tried to reach through a hole in the structure in an attempt to grab an axe, but it was repelled before it had time to retrieve it from the building. As the siege continued until daybreak, the miners were able to gradually break free from the cabin, as one of the men, named Fred Beck, claimed he saw one of the creatures standing in the distance. He took aim at the creature and pulled the trigger, watching as it tumbled down into the gorge below. Fred Beck later wrote a book detailing the siege that he and his fellow miners experienced that night, but in the book he makes the claim that the creatures were actually extra-dimensional beings. Despite numerous theories, the store is enough to attract thousands of hikers to the spot each year, although the original cabin is no longer there and the surrounding area was changed due to the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. Bigfoot and UFO phenomena. While the reports of Bigfoot sightings continue to increase, theories relating to the origins of the cryptid continue to provoke curiosity, becoming even more complex and imaginative. John A. Keel, the author behind the Mothman prophecies, referred to creatures like Bigfoot as ultra-terrestrials, a species that can cross dimensions freely. While Bigfoot sightings are common, their behavior is often different. While many reports suggest the creatures are hostile, there is also numerous reports that suggest a more gentle nature. A vile stench is often said to precede them, as well as tree knocking, screams, or even revealing themselves briefly before vanishing into thin air. Despite giving humans signs of their presence, they have still managed to evade human contact for hundreds of years, ever since the first reported sightings. Though numerous signs are often reported before Bigfoot sightings, UFO phenomena is one of the most common. It is estimated that around 20% of all Bigfoot sightings coincide with unidentified flying objects in the same area. One account of a UFO and Bigfoot originates from an 1888 meeting between cattle ranchers and a group of Native Americans in Northern California. The natives had described 3 crazy bears that came down from the sky in a small craft. The craft left the creatures in the woods before flying off. Another report was made by a woman in Ohio in 1973. The mother and daughter were both asleep when around midnight a beam of light came down from an umbrella-shaped craft in the sky. Upon seeing where the light was shining in the woods, they noticed greyish, simian beings walking towards the beam. Within a short amount of time, both the beings and craft had disappeared. The CIA also investigated a coinciding report of Bigfoot and a UFO at Presque Isle State Park in Erie, Pennsylvania, on July 31, 1966. The report was filed alongside thousands of other UFO reports as part of the infamous Project Blue Book. 4 tourists from New York were visiting the popular destination when their car became stuck in the sand after a day relaxing on the beach. Gerard LaBelle was one of the 4 and was sent to call a tow truck. The other 3 stayed in the car and waited for help, until at around 10 p.m. a police patrol car stopped to see if the group were all right. The group were informed that a tow truck was on the way to help, and so the police officers said they would call back within the hour to ensure they had managed to pull their car free. After approximately 35 minutes, the police returned, only to be told by one of the members that they had just witnessed something strange hovering above the woods. The officers, along with Douglas Tibbetts, one of the members of the group, went out into the woods to investigate what they had seen. The remaining 2 members of the group stayed with the car until the others returned. The officers and Tibbetts managed to walk roughly 300 yards from the car before they heard the car's horn, which caused them to turn around and hurry back to the car. As soon as they arrived, the 2 women who were left with the car were visibly shaken, claiming they had just witnessed a dark figure larger than a man with a big head and wide shoulders, no hands or face visible, as though it had its back turned, lumbered into the bushes. The creature was also heard to be scratching at the car's roof before one of the members had sounded the horn, which scared the creature away. Investigators later dismissed the report as being a raccoon. However, they were sure it was something more. Their description did not match that of a raccoon, and accompanied with the sighting of a UFO just above the woods, it was almost certainly something more mysterious. The UFO was said to have been an angular craft, which emitted red and orange lights. It then descended towards the beach before emitting a beam of white light which seemed to be tracking something in the woods, just moments before the women had encountered the humanoid creature. The UFO then ascended into the night sky and flew off at an incredible speed, heading north. After the event, officers returned to the spot where the UFO had been seen, and they noticed 2 triangular-shaped marks embedded in the ground. The officer writing the report said, "I have no reasonable explanation of the UFO," and he described the witnesses as creditable. But what do you make of these Bigfoot stories? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.